Call to order of the, Call to order of the Trails and Greenways Committee monthly meeting. Today is April 6th, 2023. Meeting starting here at 5:32 p.m. Do roll call. So I guess I'll start with myself. Anthony DeVincenzo, Chair, present. Beth Dungisha, currently absent. We don't know, maybe. Vice Chair. Secretary Erin Cook is not going to be here today, so she's absent. Terry McCarthy. John Custer.
Here.
Joe Falcon. Joe Kasuka.
Here.
And nothing's changed, right, Steve? They haven't logged on? All right, so Dr. Delia Archer, absent, and Mark Carr, absent. Everybody would, I'm sorry, moment of silence, please. Everybody would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So first order of business is consider approving the agenda. There was one thing I think that I did not get on there. I think I'd already sent you, Steve, the agenda at that time. So are we allowed to amend it at this time then if we?
I think if you vote to amend the agenda and then amend the agenda and then take a vote on the new agenda.
Okay, we have, of course, we do it. So John, I don't know if we want to bring up the collaboration with the EAC.
Yes.
Okay, so I personally would like to make a motion to amend the agenda specifically regarding adding just a little bit of information for everybody regarding our collaboration with the EAC to help them out with something that they've requested. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Joe Falcon and John Custer. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, unanimous. Motion passes.
And that would be, I guess, item number 8.4.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
8.4. So for 8.4, we'll add in there.
EAC collaboration.
Yes, sir.
Discussion and possible action.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. And at that point, I guess we approve the agenda, right?
Now, I actually think we go
All
through and do an official.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the agenda? Okay, motion by Terry McCarthy. Second. All right, seconded by Joe Kasuka. Motion for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Time for public comment. Any questions on the agenda? Any comment? Okay. We do have two members of two residents here today, so thank you for joining, as always. Appreciate it. Okay, next item of business is consider approving the minutes from the March 2nd meeting. I move to estimates.
Second.
Moved by Anthony DeVincenzo and seconded by John Custer. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. I apologize for how they were. I did my best and I followed up with Rose, but it was not an easy one to go back and forth. Especially considers my first time doing it as well.
You did good.
I think you did great.
Rose had like 7 questions for me, so she might disagree, but she was very nice about it. She didn't make me feel bad about it. I did that all by myself. Apparently, I forgot to roll call. I don't know if we normally call it Mr. Steve Neese, but he is running late according to Mr. Sherritt's information. So we're going to go back to land development, hopefully after he's able to get back in here as he is coming in. So let's go on to new business then. 8.1, discussion and possible action regarding Trails and Greenways social media posts. I did not know Beth was not going to be here. Her and I had talked early in the week about it, but I haven't heard anything since. I don't know, Terry, if she's spoken with you either. Okay, so one of the questions that I'd like to bring up then with this is, I know we submitted the post from last meeting. We had the post. We came up with it. We had one for March, Women's Month. Did it ever make it on the Newtown Township page? Because I didn't see it. I was looking for it. I did not see the post ever make it there. Do we know who does?
I believe Rose in the office handles that, and I will have to go find out. I am not sure myself.
Okay, yeah, if you could please follow up on that, because obviously, I thought Beth did a phenomenal job with the write-up of it. I know that Terry, I think you proofed it for, because there was a couple typos or whatever, but it was a great thing there, and we do want to continue to do that and push these forward, but I want to make sure they're making it through that.
Absolutely. I thought I remembered seeing the post, but I don't remember if I saw it from, being sent in as a draft or if I saw it actually posted or not. So I will have to look into that.
Yeah. Okay,
But we will ensure that they get up. That's great.
great. Thank you very much. In light of then still staying on this topic, is there anybody else that has at least a recommendation or something they might want to put forward for this month's? We've got a little bit of time because we're early in the month to be able to get something in. So if there's a recommendation, I know Aaron had proposed potentially writing some of them up, but if we come up with the idea. Thank you.
So I wrote.
Do you want, you can read them all.
This is a post about the April 22nd hike. And I know you have a really great one that I saw by the Historical Society, but I sent this today to Steve Bradley. And so if you like the verbiage, I can send you more photos or do whatever. And I'm not sure if I should send it to you or who. Yeah, I think just to you. Yeah, and then it goes to Rose. Okay. But I think we would like to have it on the website too, besides, because we have like 4 of our walks on there, but we don't have consistent patterns of loading that. So hopefully, we've had like 17 walks now or something. So it's kind of hard to keep track, but
Yeah, I'll look and see. I also thought I had seen that as an event post come out, but I'll check on that as well.
okay, thank you.
Anything else, Terry?
No.
Don, any ideas? No? Okay. All right, moving on then to 8.2, discussion and possible action regarding future trail walks and the potential dates for bicycle rides. So want to go to trail walk first, Terry, and then we can cover the bicycle ride?
Sure, the April 22nd
Yep.
event got loaded today. It just goes up tonight. And so the meetup has it. I think we have 8 or 10 people. Thank you. We have 8 or 10 people that just signed up in a few hours. There's another event that is interesting because it was sent to me by the EAC vice chair, and it's also involves Parks and Rec, Wade Pollock and Cindy Mahalo. So it's called Walk with a Dock. And the DCNR is partnering with Walk with a Dock, which is like some organization where you can have a medical professional guide a walk and talk about a topic in that walk. And they're sponsoring this in September, which sounds like a long way away. I printed this out, but the issue is you have to register to do this by April 28th. So
Individual people or groups of people?
a group.
Group,
It's a
okay.
group. It's so to her, a walk with a doc is a free healthcare provider led walk. And DCNR welcomes any local, regional, or state organization or agency to join the event by holding a walk with a doc in their community, and then tells you how to do it.
And there's not a specific date. They're just saying September. So
Yeah, you just
okay.
register that you'd like to do it on a certain date, but the question is, how do you all feel about that? I think it sounds really interesting. It'd be novel.
I mean, I think it's good just from the perspective of also if it's any way connecting with the DNR or DCNR, which we're, there's grants and different things, so there's a possible connection regarding just a networking aspect of it as well. So the real thing is that we already have the meetup group, which I'm sure would be interested. It would just be a different way of doing one of our walks and adding some complexity to it, because we've been talking about how to mix up those walks. Are we going to do it different areas? Are we going to connect in townships where we link in, which we've already done? So as we're running out of ideas and space to do new places, this is a way of mixing up. So I mean, personally, I don't see why there's any reason why we shouldn't do it.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I was going to say exactly what you said. And,
I've been spending too much time with it, that's why we're
in
thinking.
the same way, a couple of times, it sometimes gets a little bit old and we're limited. So this is a whole new venue, a whole new cast. And we can go on any walk we want, but this is novel. It's great.
So
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and register us then.
Yes,
Is that
please.
okay? Okay.
Oh, well, do we technically put that stuff to a vote, I guess? I mean,
Yeah, I think it's
it's
appropriate.
action, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's an action. I think it's appropriate.
All right, so I move to do it as well. Anyone second? Okay, all in favor of registering for this event and setting something up for September? All right, the ayes have it, unanimous, motion passes. Thank you very much, Terry, for
Thank
bringing that
you.
to our attention.
Keep you posted.
Good.
Great.
Yeah.
There was nothing on that site about it. I looked at what is this required to register? And it was more a description of where you'd like to go, how long is it? And then they match you with a doctor. They pick a doctor for you. You don't get, unless you know somebody that you want to have host and guide it.
Can we add doctors to that if we want to? If we get 60 people, we might want to have more than one.
Oh, that's a good point. Well, I will be contacting the person in charge directly anyway, which is on the bottom of this, Sherry Matter. So any questions you have, please send them to me and I'll.
One of the questions I would have would be, in light of that is, I mean, I guess it depends on if they want to or not, but if there are any doctors in our existing meetup group
Right.
that wouldn't mind, at least if we do end up with a massive group, maybe conversing with the doctor they pair us with and discussing if there's possible things they want to bring up so they could share the information. That's the only thing I could think of. It depends. They might not want to admit that they're a doctor and being solicited for unpaid medical advice. So who knows?
Liability.
Yeah, you never know. I'm
Okay.
learning that from every time too, is that it's always liability. So,
Well, that's why it's kind of unique.
yeah,
So
but it's a
I'm-
good idea. I mean,
Well, first person to tell me about it was Wade, and then I got this also from the EDC folks, so
okay.
I guess they'll both be involved.
That's, yeah, it sounds like a winner. So,
Okay.
okay. So as far as bicycle rides, so I've been in contact with the Bike Coalition. We're trying to set up a date. So the real question is thinking all about this. I'm prioritizing safety of the event more than anything because it does add a complexity to things. And I'm a cyclist myself and been involved in issues, accidents. So we want to make sure that we're safe. So that being said, can anybody think of a time of year? Obviously, we're getting into warm weather. So that's one possible thing out of the way. We're out of cold weather. We obviously don't want to push this to fall because then you get potentially back into bad weather again. So is this just a thing we want to do for the summer, pick a month in advance? Because I do think this one will take longer to coordinate. I don't think we pick one for May. I think it's going to be too rushed
Yeah.
because we're also banking on these other people with the Bike Coalition to lobby their connections. I think they said there was, forget how many, it was like 20 to 40 people that are in their group that are from our township. So I don't think we're going to get all of them, but I think it could be possible to get some. So I wanted to make sure that we're coordinating. Anybody have any comment or ideas on that of a good time frame to do it? Because right now I'm just saying June. Saying like late June, maybe the third week of June or something like that.
We don't know how long they're going to take, so maybe move it a little bit. August this might be too hot.
Yeah, and I think it'd be too hot. And a lot of people, that's traditionally the biggest vacation month. So if we
Yeah.
want to get decent group of people that are committed to, I think that might be the hardest, but
What about September?
you think? I was thinking that once you get back in the fall, you get a lot of people that are more involved in kids stuff again, summer sports. I was thinking a weekend. That's the problem. You get into fall, you get sports and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but we're not looking for the same numbers of our normal walks because it would be damn near impossible to safely do an event with 60 to 100 people on bikes unless we got police support, all that other stuff. So that's why I was really thinking of trying to get this group to the Bicycle Coalition people, what they have, maybe getting 10 to 15 people from that group of 20 to 40 that they have.
Off-road trail.
We were specifically going to target a road trail that is marked as a potential bikeway for the future. So in our master plan, we wanted to pick one of the ones where we would at least be crossing a section that we in the future want to do a bike path so that they could see. And we were trying to make sure that if we have the right numbers, it could be safe enough there where we could show, listen, it's not great. We don't want to do it a weekday because of rush hour, other things that increase the traffic.
Yeah.
So we're thinking about it early, like a morning ride essentially on a weekend where the traffic would be less, but people could still understand the claustrophobia that you feel when even just a few cars are going by at a relatively safe pace.
And maybe we shouldn't consider 252 or Route 3, maybe not even Goshen Road.
Yeah, the honest truth is that the data is always that the bigger roads are actually a little bit safer
As
because
long as they have service.
exactly. But Goshen Road, yeah, that would be dangerous. So agreed. But so we haven't figured that out yet. These guys have been very helpful in helping me like think about what to do. But right now, the first thing is I think we just set a date so we have a target to go for where we know, okay, we have to have it planned by this time frame. So yeah. And then, but we can do that. What do you think? I don't know. Do we still want to do early September?
I think we cap it though.
Cap it there?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
cap it, like,
So maybe we have an
Certain
early
number.
target of
I
like
would- I
late
would talk-
June.
yeah, but I would talk to them and ask them what would be safe.
Okay.
You don't want 100 people on a bicycle.
No, absolutely. All right, so. All right, well, what I'll do then is I'll reach back out to the gentleman from the Bicycle Coalition that gave us this great presentation. And propose these, let's say this is where we're gonna try and target, but we'll have a backstop of this date, ask their opinion, talk about where we should limit the numbers, and we'll pick a route, and then hopefully next meeting, I can come in with what they've recommended and put it to the group to a vote and see what everybody says. Sound good? Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Yeah, I really liked his presentation and I want to make sure that we do it this year. Especially because of how it ties in with the master plan and where we were showing proposed bike lanes, I think would be a good idea. And potentially get more supporters even to regular trail walks, the people that maybe are so in the bike zone, they don't realize what we're doing. We'll get it out there. Yeah, okay, great, thank you. For John, let the record show that Mr. Neese arrived, thank you. So we skipped over 7.1. I'm sure you told him already. Regarding the Veterans Memorial, Marville. Do you have any update for us sir, on that?
My understanding is that they are going to be before the planning commission this month. So at the end of the month. So if you're wanting to make any recommendations based on the plan, I don't think there's a lot of change to the plan, to be honest with you. There's a few things that they were asked to come back and do. I've actually not had a chance to review the plan since it was resubmitted. We had a couple things going on, so I really don't have a lot to update other than if you want to be more specific in what you're wanting to try to do at this time in what you want to say in regards to your recommendation.
So recap then from the last time we discussed this, I know we had the conversation about moving the potential crosswalk to a safer location due to that issue there and what's considered safe by PennDOT. So thank you for that. it's really hard to tell because all we got on the updated plan was the one big plan, and was like having trouble zooming in and seeing. It almost looks like they had it a sidewalk, but I can't tell because it doesn't call it out as a sidewalk. It looks like they drew two parallel lines.
Yes. I
It's all
saw
the road, but it doesn't say sidewalk, so they could just as easily be, utility lines or something that aren't marked. It's just a little confusing, so I don't know if you noticed that.
So like my recommendation there would be if you're wanting to make sure sidewalks put in at a certain location, that you should go ahead and be on the record that you want sidewalk.
Yep.
It would also, I know that, John, you've been actually working pretty hard with them to try to get a trail. This may be the time to at least ask for a commitment for
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I intend to be there.
Yeah.
You will-
So I think that, but I think it should come from this group.
Yep.
In asking for that commitment. And so, I think that that's important.
When is
And-
the meeting, sir?
The planning commission meeting is I think it's the 27th. Yeah, it's the
27th.
27th.
27th? Okay.
Yeah. So obviously, whatever you come out of tonight, we would give to them. I mean, you would have a chance before it got to the board of supervisors, if you need more time to look at the plan to weigh in on it. But, if you have some things you want the planning commission to consider, that's an opportunity now to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we already wrote up a draft response previously. It's been edited, the plans have been edited a couple times, so. Yes, I think that would be appropriate, is take a little bit more time to review this latest drawing that came in. Because I'm zooming in on out of here, but I don't see a call out. I just see vague lines, and I don't have the old set in front of me to say whether or not they added something.
Yeah.
Because it's not drawn out. It's not really clearly stated, so.
Yeah.
It might be in the meeting notes, or I mean, not the meeting, it might be in the notes on the far right corner. I haven't had a chance to read those.
Yeah, they blow up really big if you do, but then they pixelate, so.
Oh, wait, that's a
Excellent.
different, Steve, that's a different drawing than the one that's attached to the agenda. I only have one page. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there was a problem opening that one with the link, so that was that directly to the agenda.
Am I supposed to go to the Chester Valley link then? Oh, okay.
Those are the new.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right. All
So.
right, I don't want to take too much up, but yeah.
So I mean, I think the things that you're most concerned about, at least, would be for sure sidewalk. Second would be potential connection for the trail that we're interested in.
Yep.
And this is a time to ask.
Yep.
And then the other thing that you may or may not want to weigh in on at this point, it's so early in this development, I don't know where green space would fit. Like it's such a small part of the total of what's there. If you ask for something, you may find that you're asking for something too small of what's the whole piece. So that's my only comment in that.
Are you referring to, sir, the fact that we know they want the future development of the whole property?
Yes.
In reference to
I mean,
that?
so part of the challenge is that you're evaluating this as a very small piece of a very large potential project. And, what you might ask for here for green space would probably be less because it's a very small development of a very much bigger piece. You might just want to go on record that you would request that when the whole project is developed, there's a certain amount of green space that's left available or at least left open in the process because we want to maintain green space. I don't think you want to say we want to leave the rest of the site open. I mean, we might, but I don't think that's going to be realistic. So, but I don't know what the right thing to ask for in this because it's such a small piece of the total land, if that makes what.
No,
understand what I'm saying.
it definitely makes sense, and I was thinking along the same lines, is that we should still ask, knowing that they plan to develop the whole thing, we should still mention that we want their consideration in the future development of all those too.
That's why I would just go on record.
No, I agree. So the question is, I'll put it to the group. Personally speaking, if we know they're gonna be developing the whole area, then do we treat it like they treat the cluster communities where we're gonna say, hey, listen, you should really be maintaining some contiguous space that's large enough to sustain shade trees and other things and plantings in the future? Do we want it to be a buffer around the property for beautification as well and have wildlife corridors that connect with the trail area?
I think the wildlife corridor is very important.
Yeah, but, so question I have is, I mean, that property's been planned for 20 years. Are we talking about a hypothetical plan, or are we talking about, have they submitted plans to actually develop it? Outside of what this proposal is?
They have not, and so that's part of the challenge. You're looking at this. The challenge with this project is you're looking at this as a very small piece of what's probably going to be a much bigger project. And so typically you would want to look at the whole development and say, based on, this 200 acres, we would be looking, for X amount of several acres of open space. But they're developing less than an acre at this time, I think. And so it's really hard to come back and say what they should be doing based on this. But I think you should say, I think the comment that I would make if I were you would be something along the lines of, though we're not proposing the specific green space in this plan, we want to go on record that as you develop the whole plan, we would hope that you would, or that we would expect that you would take in for a certain amount of green space that would remain, that would be open for wildlife corridors and those kind of things, potential trails. And I would bring in the fact that you're interested in having a trail come from Root Road area, across and back out. And so I would go for the things that you're interested in, understanding that they may say, well, that's not a part of this exact plan, but at least you've gone on record so that when they come back in, you're not having to recreate the wheel. You've already said, this is what you're asking for. And John, I know you've had these conversations for quite a bit. And so I think that it's important to just be on record that we're still going in that direction.
Yeah, and by way of background, there still is outstanding a pledge by that group to give the township 5 level acres. And
Yeah.
it's never been taken. And I don't know whether it would fit
So
in
is
here or
that, is that
somewhere
something that
else.
we mentioned? Is that out of line to mention that?
I think, again, if we know it's there, I think I think you just say, we're not asking for it in this section, but we are wanting to be on record that we still are anticipating these things as part of this development, so that when they come back in and you ask and they say, well, it's too late, we've already done this.
Yeah.
You've already been on record and saying, this is what you're looking for. Good point.
Well, I think, and again, for the regulatory side of this thing, I mentioned this to you, Mr. Neese, previously, and everybody else, is that they opened the door by showing on the one plan, future development plans, they show it all grayed out. So they've clearly been doing engineering and planning work. Obviously said it's been 20 years that they've been planning something out here. So they know they've got the bigger plan. So I think it's completely appropriate to do what you said. Exactly.
And if they have some things planned that they haven't told us about, we want to sort of stake our claim on the trail in case they try to go across that.
No. Okay, all right, so then pretty much then nothing has changed though legitimately from the previous comment letter that I made, the previous draft. And that everybody had already kind of agreed to is we're gonna ask for the sidewalks. Crosswalk thing, we figured out, we know we can't do the one because it was unsafe, we have to move it if we did have it. We want the trail connection to the back, I forget the name, John, of I think it was Reese's Run that it.
Reese's Run.
The Reese's Run Trail, so let me write that in my notes, to make sure.
And I would
Yeah.
say this, Steve's blown this up. They actually do have a proposed sidewalk along part of it.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that
that's the
is,
thing that was wrong.
so that is there. It's really written pretty small, but they blew it up and we can
Are
see
they
it.
discontinuing it? Is it just, is that what that is?
I think they're continuing it.
No, is that, oh, I see. Okay, yeah, so that is it. Good. That's
Okay.
good news. All right, so the only thing potentially to ask for is that the future consideration of green space and future development. And if possible, prioritizing a wildlife corridor buffer where that Reese Run is would be the best option, I think, for. all this
Yeah,
stuff.
and if they have a sidewalk in now, how far does it go? I can't really see, but we would like it up to Reese's Run.
Yeah, where we would pick up the trail in theory.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. No, great. Any other comments or questions from the group on that?
Can I just ask, is there generally in construction a percentage of land that's sort of normally set aside for conservation? Is it like a 20%?
There's impervious, a lot of, we have a private ordinance on, percentage of land impervious surface.
Right.
But
But it's not anything
No.
specific like that. There, we do have and have been working on a cluster type of ordinance. There's one that kind of how Lister was developed. John, you may have been on the board for that one.
Yeah.
And then there was one that was kind of done even with the PRD plan, although it really didn't come out that way. And then for where Ellis Preserve is, but we do have another one that we've been working on that, and we've had it kind of brought forth enough that it's at least something that somebody could do a development on that allows for a little bit greater density if you leave more open space. So it pushes more things either to the center or to a section of the property, leaving more open space. So far, the developers haven't really been interested in that and haven't really taken it on. There's a thought of changing it from a conditional use way of approach to saying that that's a by right. And if you want to develop the traditional way, that would be by conditional use. So anyway, there's a couple ways of looking at it, but right now there's nothing set.
Thank you.
I think that's everything on Marvel then. So we have the meeting on the 27th. That we will have to get this in before that, so I'm not gonna deviate from the things that we just mentioned. Pretty much update, copy that one line in there verbatim as I wrote my notes here for it, and then John, yeah, I'm gonna try and make it there
Yes,
because
you'll be there too.
unless, I don't think there's anything else that I've scheduled that day, because I want to make it because of what happened last month with the.
Yeah.
Um,
Have we
whole-
gotten their comments, our comments to the planning so that they have that in front of them?
We did not have these, the comments you have now, we will put those before them with their packet.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get this to them so they at least have, a week.
Yeah.
To review it and make sure, and it'll get put in probably just like this, embedded in there somehow.
Okay.
That way it's not such a shock when we get there.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so that's it on. We made a motion earlier to amend the agenda regarding 8.4. We added one. I realized, totally forgot, is it out of line for me to add a land development update from the Stony Knoll property? So I just found out about that earlier this week.
What are you wanting to add?
That apparently there's potentially a change based on the water. It's now he doesn't want to do the sidewalks. He's like fighting that back, just so everybody's aware of what's going on.
But you gave your proposal, right? I mean, are
Yeah,
you
I just wanted to update the group. There's no actionable items. I just wanted to update the group.
I think it's fine to update the group,
Okay.
but I don't even know that you need to add it.
That's what it is. I just want to make sure I'm trying my best to follow the procedures.
Yeah, I think you're okay if all you're doing is updating, as long as you don't,
Correct.
if you get into the spot where you're trying to take action, then I think you have a different issue.
No, we've already made our recommendations on it, obviously. So,
Okay.
okay, so update on the Stony Knoll property, which was the first one we ever reviewed for land development review, where we made the recommendation for the sidewalks out on the frontage of Wayland. I always want to say Wayland. And we have
It's, I think, Whalen.
yeah, it's Wayland, and it just passed the property, it turns into Whitehorse. Yep. But, and then the sidewalks in the property and also the preservation of the green space, which we're now realizing actually has a wetland component to it, where it's all trees and wooded area along Wayland. And apparently they kind of missed their due diligence early on. And there was some complications that is causing Mr. Nolan some extra cost. As a result, he's trying to fight back to recoup the cost and is now kind of not wanting to do the sidewalks. Unfortunately, I missed the meeting, the planning commission. It was 27th or 24th last month. We were there, so you might even be able to tell a little bit better. Now, I was getting it secondhand from our friends at the EAC to updating me, Cindy, and if you want to comment on it, let us know.
I did stand up and make a comment that sidewalks were key for children, coming to the end of the road and waiting for the bus and whatever. I'll refrain from the kind of response I got from the developer, but in essence, he thought it was ludicrous to mandate that extension of the sidewalk and would be cost prohibitive. And some of the people on the planning commission seem to concur with him. So the issue with lot 18 was the actual real monkey wrench in my mind, because
Yeah.
he wants to replace the natural environment there, which does process the water, groundwater and all, with an artificial sort of water processing facility of some kind, tank. I don't remember what he called it.
Yeah, retention and infiltration, yeah.
Yeah, and the EAC and the trees and quite a few people stood up and spoke. And I was sitting right there next to his son and him. And so I didn't know them, but I heard the conversation and I felt it was disappointing, their response to the entire presentation, and I guess their attorney or their engineer as well. So it does not look good, in my opinion, for the sidewalk.
Yeah,
I hope that he keeps lot 18. He did say, well, you approved this when I had 29 units before and so forth, and now you won't approve it, and I only have so many houses with 2 acres, and he made an emphatic gesture which said, how many people in here have 2 acres of property? It was that way. So anyway,
I don't understand. Was he trying to say that that was,
he was being generous
Oh.
to the people who are going to buy these properties by giving them 2 acres and nobody else around here.
I'm
could
sure he's not
do
gonna
that.
charge
So, yeah, so it was kind of a bit dicey, and
Nolan.
Nolan. And his son was there, and he's getting, I don't know, some 40-acre parcel or 50, and his son's getting 30 or 40 or something, and then they've got this thing in the middle. And it was just distressing
Well-
because it seemed as though he, he doesn't want to have more houses in there. He wants what he wants, and he doesn't feel, any responsibility to retain that lot 18 the way it is.
Well, so yeah, the reason I wanted to have the update is just so people are aware, this is difficult, the task that we're trying to do, because everybody is, it's NIMBY, not in my backyard, people don't want it. However, what was concerning about this is that he originally was putting it on the plans. It was like, yeah, no big deal, I like it, he reorganized it, and it comes down to money in the end. If had he not had that issue where his engineer, rightfully so, and I'll say this as an engineer myself, is that they screwed up by not realizing the extra costs that were going to come into this project early on. And that now he's trying to offset that, which I understand, but to just try to bring it up to everybody that we are going to fight an uphill battle, and this is in trying to get these in. The one comment that Cindy told me about that was especially concerning was that the whole, it's a sidewalk to nowhere. Well, yeah, but think about all the times we talked about building trails in segments. They might not go anywhere, but if we don't get pieces of it, we'll never connect the township. We'll never reach our goal. So that's the kind of argument that I'm mad that I wasn't there, because I would have liked to comment directly to that everybody's got to do their part. And it's not a mandate. That's the truth. It wasn't a mandate, but it is a safety concern, as you mentioned with the kids. So thank you for bringing that up. But that's all. I just wanted to update because it happened. I wasn't there, unfortunately. Cindy was luckily able to tell me a lot of what happened, and wanted everybody
You
to
can
be
see
aware.
it.
That's
It's
all.
recorded, so you can see it. But the other thing about the whole process, I think, was that they did hear from a variety of representative leadership in this township. And, they had some very articulate arguments. So hopefully what Shimon Guy is the vice chair. And he had the diplomatic aplomb to be able to maneuver it, so it would just all be postponed for 1 month while they get their water study done, because the water study was really ancient.
So yeah, in light of that, then I do recommend that if you, people in this committee, as well the public, that meeting then coming up on the 27th there's another opportunity then for the public to be heard on this item. So please do. Our recommendations don't change, no new action on it, but do appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to have that aside. Okay, getting back then, we had already talked about 8.1, 8.2. Now we're back on to 8.3, discussion and possible action regarding booth for the gather in the circle. So I brought this up last time. Remind me the date again, Terry, I think. Jeez.
Oh, 21st, May 21st.
Thank you.
9:30 to 7.
5:37.
I wrote down 5:30.
I think it's 5:30 to 8.
The Sunday, it's a Sunday too.
It's a Sunday night.
All right, so the real question is, are we doing this together with the EAC? Because in our chair meeting, I know, Steve, afterwards, we were talking with some of them. I don't know what the real plan is, if we want to do something together because of a lot of the other collaborations we're doing, or if we want to have our own booth. Point is, we need volunteers, people that are available on that particular day to be able to come, show our face, speak with the public at that time, let them know what we're doing, that kind of stuff. I am out of town, unfortunately, and I got my buddy's wedding. Sorry, I just realized it. I'm officiating the wedding, so I have to be there. But I really would appreciate, no one's logged in, right, Steve? All right.
Yeah, I can be there.
Thank you.
And I
Appreciate it.
had a meeting with the Historical Society last night, and they're intending to have their own booth. So we can collaborate with them if we want to, but I guess also with the EAC.
Yeah, because what I want to do is I don't want, if we don't have enough people to be able to volunteer, I don't want to have you by yourself there, obviously, trying to man the fort. It would be good. We have collaborated recently with them on some of the trail walks and stuff, so I think that would be a
Yeah.
good, that would be a good fit. And like I
Yeah.
said, with the EAC, if we wanted that as well, I know they'd be more than willing to,
Mhm.
just because of the amount of cross pollination we've been having
Yeah.
lately.
When that was done before, we sort of prepared some things for it, so we have to be thinking about that.
Last time was the poster board
Yep.
of the map, correct?
Yep.
Okay, how did we do that last time? Did we do that through the township? Like a sign printing? How do we do that?
No, we had that from way back.
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh, really? That was one of yours that you
It
dusted
was
off?
One of my,
Okay,
from my
All right.
archives.
I mean, we can, I mean, as long as we know what we're doing and do enough in advance. We're gonna, I know the township is going to have a table there as well for the purpose of sustainability.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it could be, what I suggested is that there may be 2 or 3 tables that we've all worked together. You know, having people talk about different things, but that way, if somebody steps away, hopefully somebody knows a little bit about something, or if there's information, they could hand it out and do that. And what the big issue that I understand is that they're really looking for activities as part of it. And not
Mm.
just a table that's just information, but what they're hoping is that when you come to the table, there's something that kids and or adults would go and do that would help them better understand what that is. So I don't know what the creativity is on a trails or a greenways, but
I don't
you
know.
know, maybe you could have a whole thing about showing the different layers of what it would take to build a trail or something. I don't know. Work with George's team and we could kind of go the ground and then to keep the erosion down or something. I don't know. Yeah, but make it sustainable and that kind of thing. So I think we could tie multiple things together in that and make it work. Suzanne, I know, is going to be there representing the township on the sustainability side and really trying to have some activity that somebody could do. And we've been talking about a couple ideas. So
One of the things we could do is, directly related to our group is obviously the importance of getting out the fitness inside. Maybe we could do just a brief thing on the proper ways to stretch, the proper ways to warm up, you know, because not everybody, some people use the trails and use the sidewalk stuff to try and get fit. They might not be in that position yet, so we're gonna make sure that they don't have setbacks from injuries. I trail ran for many years and it's not easy, so you gotta make sure you're not getting injured. So that's at least a simple activity that could be a little informational, but also a little circle going, people realizing what you should be doing. A lot of people don't realize you don't stretch before you work out.
Mm.
Warm up, dynamic warm up, stretch after, because you stretch before you can tear something. People don't know that.
Well, Beth had a couple suggestions, and it kind of goes along with what our guests here have advocated for picking up trash. She thought, you know, you could have a display of how long does it take a carrot to decay, or this to decay, or that to decay, so that you understand what happens when you throw garbage on a trail. And, you know, she has documentation on that. So that would be kind of an easy visual, and kids could take a can and throw it through a little thing, you know, or something, because I'll also be at Garrett Williamson.
That's a good idea.
And they're gonna have like a cornhole and big bales of hay and maybe even a goat. So.
I like the game for the kids, like trash, like just an empty soda can kind of thing.
Yeah, toss it in.
in.
Right?
Yeah, maybe another possibility to have some sort of a quiz to have kids identify flora and fauna that they might see along the trail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a little.
John, you're gonna win that one. You're gonna kick those kids.
I'm not gonna be in the.
All right.
Coming in.
Steve, do you think there's any way we could possibly get, well, one of the things I was thinking with the trash cleanup idea is there any way where we can get like the Amazon dog poop bags to hand out to people that are interested in it? Because that's what I use. It's simple, it's a small roll, they're
I
super
just
cheap.
ordered those.
I put them over your hand, you pick stuff up, that way, something gross tied up. So I don't know, is that
Make a
a possibility? Very cheap.
Yeah. Let me just look at it. I mean, I don't know what, like, how many do you want to have to hand out? Like, I mean, what? I mean, just,
I mean, the ones we have in there are the inserts though for the flags, right? So what I was thinking about is like the rolls, because that's what the easiest way is. If we're advocating for trail walkers, stuff like that, to then be advocates for the trails and picking up trash along the way, the easiest things is those dog poop bag rolls, because they're so small, you tuck in your pocket, you pull one off at a time. I don't know, just an idea.
Good idea.
I like the idea. My brain goes immediately to liability, and I'm just thinking about that. So let me, I just don't want somebody to pick up something, cuts their hand because the plastic, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
But let me and George work through that. Maybe we can come up with something that is reasonable and makes sense. Because I get what you're
Paired with
saying.
the education, I think
Yeah.
definitely is, we would, and one of the things that we were already talking about doing is a social media post in which we discuss like ways that the average person can get involved just in their normal daily life,
Yeah.
not necessarily bigger things, but yeah, absolutely. Don't pick up sharp objects, stuff like that, but how many times you see a cigarette butt?
Yeah.
Or a tissue,
Yep.
and you feel gross about touching somebody else's discarded tissue, this is the easy way to do it. So,
Yeah, I just want to make sure we look through a couple of those things, just because people do something and the next thing I know, we're liable for something that we handed out. So I just want to make sure we're covered.
Okay,
Now you see gas.
yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Less and less of them, luckily, but yeah, you do still see them everywhere.
None of mine,
Huh?
without a bind.
Yeah. All right, next item, unless anybody else has anything more on it. Thank you, okay. Next item is 8.4, the one that we added is the EAC collaboration. So ever since the chair and vice chair committee meetings that we've been having, we've been trying to talk to them about different things we could do. We've obviously already collaborated well with the historical people in the township. So EAC has been wanting to collaborate with us more. They had actually reached out to ask for help because of the two lawyers that we have in our group here. They're looking to modify the weed ordinance to allow for pollinator species of flowers to be planted with still consideration of the intent of the original law, the original ordinance, so it doesn't become a nuisance. and hazard and stuff like that we have to worry about. So luckily, John and Joe and I met on Monday to kind of go over the request, reviewed it a bit. Joe's going to take a stab at writing kind of some draft language to get back in front of them. Joe, I don't know how much time you need. I told you the aggressiveness that they were going after, but
So just so
Yes,
everybody's
sir.
aware, I mean, they brought this to my attention and I made a recommendation that for now, not to try to put it in ordinance language, but to put it in really in a outline format of what were the things that they thought would be the key pieces to the ordinance and present that to the board before anybody spends time putting a lot of energy one way or another to it. I think the board, if instead of writing it all to make the legal part, but just to really say, these are the parameters that we would like to function in and present that to the board for board's review. And if the board wants to change something, change it up front versus waiting until it's all been written. I mean, it still may do because you got to go through the public process, but this would be an opportunity to get a better understanding what the board's looking for as well. So that would be my recommendation. That's the recommendation I made to one of the EAC members last week when they asked me about it. And so,
they seemed a little disjointed, if I may say. I don't think they really know, because I think they know they have the existing ordinance and that's what they've been looking at and that's what they've been trying to think in. So I didn't know that component to it. They reached out through John, I believe, and we just met on it. So is there any harm in at least us trying? Because I think their thoughts are
here's
good.
what I didn't want to have happen. And if you all want to spend your time doing that,
Uh-huh.
feel free. I just didn't want you to spend hours and hours writing an ordinance
Okay,
and then have the board say, we're not interested. If you could put together an outline that says, here are the things that we would see to make this work, it would have to have 10 feet of around the edges that are always mowed, or, whatever it is that you come up with, because that was one of the things that was thrown out. Not trying to put it in language that would make, because there's a lot to going into writing the ordinance itself. I just was trying to say, come up with your bullet points of the things that are the areas that you want to try to do. Let the board review it, make sure that they're okay, give you any feedback before you go in and spend the time writing it. That's my whole point.
And this was the procedure that had been used before by the EAC. I remember when they were drafting ordinance, they always came in with an outline first.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think it helps.
yeah, no, I'm just confused because we were asked, we're obviously trying to help. We didn't know anything about it.
Well, I met with one of them literally Friday of last week, so I don't know when you all met.
Monday.
Okay, so I don't know. That's all I can tell
The
you.
email, to be fair, I think the email, John, came in
Maybe
before,
Friday,
was it Friday?
yeah.
Okay, because it came into you and then we talked and then we set up something for Monday. I don't remember, but we met Monday evening just to kind of,
Okay,
because we had to talk about a couple other things anyways, and we were.
Okay.
All right. So I guess hold off.
No.
I mean, it's up to you, whatever you all want to do. I just would put it in an outline form. If you can do that, let the board review the outline form before you spend a lot of time.
Well,
putting-
Joe,
I-
would that be easier then?
No, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't think the ordinance requires any substantial revision to it to begin with. I think
Okay,
for
well
the
then if
overall-
that's the case, then it's not a big
Yeah, I mean,
deal.
I think the overall intent there was to expand upon some definitions and then include the possibility of meadows. Or things that people that have a certain amount of property that are offset based off the current offsets right now. Or sorry, not offsets, setbacks. And allow that to be not overgrown, but to use what would be typical, natural growth. So. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it was-
it'd be a work in progress, but I agree. I don't think it's anything we have to be rushed based off,
No,
that
this
to
was.
get something done by Saturday would be.
Well, I knew that was
Yeah.
crazy, but I was trying to be nice when Jack
Right,
mentioned it. I
understand.
was like, well, I'll find out. That's what I
Yeah.
told her. But, yeah, I think it was the last line of the ordinance where it gave, this is not intended to restrict this. And we were trying to look at, as Joe said, the definitions. They include like the definitions of a field, the offset and all that, where it wasn't gonna be much to change it. where we really thought that it wouldn't violate the original intention of the ordinance, but allow for what they were asking for. So,
But it also would include an outline of specifically what our intent is.
Yep.
In those definitions.
okay. All right. Any other comment, question on that? All right. Old business. Harry, 9.1, recap of the Carol Walks at Garrett Williamson, would you mind?
We had a great time, about 80 attendees. The reception in the new Ram Barn Education Center was awesome. We got to go see lambs out in the field, and we had 4 different walks, and we had a great time. We even picked up trash again. So I'm thrilled with that part, because who would think there would be trash on Garrett Williamson property, but it blows around and it's, Oh, one interesting thing is that not on that day, but I went out to look at the trails prior to the event, so I knew exactly where I was going. I went with Giselle on the little green thing. There are people from the neighborhood behind there that ride motorbikes in there. And while we were on the trail near the border of the property, some kid came flying up behind us on a bike and saw us and then turned around and left. So,
This was on the Garrett Williamson property in the
On the
back there,
Garrett-
where it goes around the back of the hill.
yep, down, yes, down towards, what is the neighborhood there? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Florida. Park. Yeah, and you can see where they've broken the wire and get underneath, because there is a border in Florida Park that they maintain. But evidently last year or 2 years ago, somebody came in on a motorbike and there were campers walking down there and they hit a camper, one of the kids. So I'm not sure, this is just an awareness thing. If we end up with a borderline trail, there might need to be some sort of a perimeter that stops people from bringing their bikes in. And actually, one of the people in Florida Park has a deer blind that points directly onto Garrett Williamson property. And they have found deer with arrows in it on the property. And so that seems illegal to me. He has 2 deer blinds. One goes towards some other part and one looks right at you.
So
And
so it's like,
Yeah, but that's a gaming commission issue.
yeah, but
it's
so
not
it's
a
on,
big
it's
scale.
not on Garrett Williamson property, you're saying it's.
No, it's
Because
not.
I know that somebody did tell me that, I think some of the staff had approval to hunt there at one point. I don't know. I
It
think
is
it was like a
private
little
property.
rumor, but
So under PA law, under the gaming commission, if you ask permission for private property, they're allowed to hunt there. I'm not saying that they should, but they're allowed to. And the fact is, even if they shoot a deer on their private property, as long as they ask permission to go harvest the deer on someone else's private property, they can do that as well.
They used to do that on the DuPont property.
Yeah.
Years ago.
well, but let's get back to was it dirt bikes? You said motorbike. Is that what we're
Dirt
talking
bike.
about? Okay.
That's a whole
Off-
other thing.
off-road-
Yeah, bikes, that's
off-road
illegal,
bike.
I think.
Yeah, so the question I have is that, is the fence that they cut
I don't
Garrett
know.
Williamson's?
No, I think it's Florida Parks, where those big beams are, and then there's wire. And so some places, looks like the wire was snapped, that's all. It's not like wooden fence.
I think it's Garrett Williamson's fence. I don't know
I
that
can
for
look
sure.
into that.
Yeah, can you follow that?
Yeah, it looks
That'd be
like it's on the.
But here, again, one of the things that that becomes a challenge is this more of a property issue. And so it's the 2 property owners. And, that becomes more of an issue. It's harder for the township to go in and do something there unless it's actually something they have to do as they're enforcing their property rights.
They
So,
would have to file a police report for the incident probably.
well, they
a
could
year
file a
ago.
police report for the incident, but the problem is that unless it's posted, no trespassing. There's a lot of things that you have to go through to make it, we can't just go say you can't do this. There's some things that the property owner has to do first.
I mean,
Perhaps I can ask for.
like hunting
guidelines.
alone, they have to have private property, it says no trespassing and then essentially no hunting, or use a purple dot.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, I mean, like you put up a fence and things like that. I mean, the motorbike's completely different. I mean, but that's private property. That's Garrett Williams' problem, whatever the board has to deal with.
So
But
I'm
otherwise.
gonna
it
ask
was
a question to you
terrific
about
event.
liability. If we sponsor a trail walk on private property, as such as Garrett Williamson, and something happens, is that an issue for the township?
Yes.
Okay,
I mean,
Yeah.
there's a reason why there's times when I say.
Yep.
I need to think about liability. And look, there may be some protections we have because the township has a lot of protections.
Yeah.
In things, but if we sponsor something and we do it, there is some liability that we take on. And it may be that we're still covered, but that doesn't take away the fact that
Right.
somebody may choose to still go after us, even if we still have coverage. And so I can tell you, there are several cases that we've had in not the so far distant future, more recently, that we've spent several thousands of dollars saying that we shouldn't even be in the case. But you still have to go through that to defend yourself. So there's a reason why I always look at what we're doing and say, yes, this is good, or we should consider other things here. But there's also the issue, the property owner themselves has liability when we could do that. So you have to look at all those things.
Unless they have a waiver.
okay. Yeah, just, I mean, thank you for bringing it up though, because I mean, it's still good to know. It does have implications if we ever did get our own trail back there, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I did want to also say that the good PR and the good publicity was massive. We had, again, politicians, Lisa Borowski came, and everybody was very supportive and very delighted to be able to use the property. So, thank you, and Garrett Williamson, thanks you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to 9.2 update. So I put this in there specifically because of conversations that I've been having with residents at some of the trail walks. And also Aaron and I were talking about something, and one of the things that was confusing was there's confusing information about what actually was the final conclusion of the rail trail. So my question is that it was grant dollars. We did it, right? We had it. Joe was the member from this committee that was representing us. And the question I have is there like a final summary report? I mean, because right now it's done. There's no more action moving forward at this time. Is that correct?
I'm actually going to get the committee together one last time
Okay.
and for one last conversation about a couple thoughts that I've had since then and see what their committee's desires are, and then we'll have to make a decision after that.
Okay, and at that time, then is it standard operating procedure to have a report?
I don't think you're gonna, other than the fact that we can't move forward, I think that is going to be the report.
But not like a detailed what.
Well, there's
separate
no,
reasons?
we didn't fully engage the feasibility study to get to that point because of some legal issues. So
Okay.
I don't know that there's any formal kind of report that you're gonna get out of this.
Yeah, I'm looking for for the committee itself, like educational, okay, we understand stuff happens, but what happened, how it happened, so that in the future, we as a committee can learn from it. Especially because of the grant dollars associated, where the grant dollars completely expended.
No, most of the grant dollars were not expended. We didn't get far enough along.
Okay.
We had some monies that we expended from the consultant. My guess is the township is going to have to eat those funds because we didn't go through the whole study.
Was it a reimbursement grant, sir?
They would have given us the money up front. I usually do it as a reimbursement once I know what the actual costs are. So, but I would suspect because we don't have an end product, they would expect that grant return.
Yeah, that's why I was asking the question, sir. I was just curious because in my own experience with working with the grant stuff, is that when stuff is done, regardless of the outcome, is that there is usually that. But I wasn't aware that there would be a follow-up meeting.
No, I would do a postmortem and memorialize anything with respect to this. It is what it is. Leave it alone. Things could change in 2 years, it could change in 5 years, 6 years. You don't want to go back to that, and then that's essentially a baseline of where we start from.
I understand, but we were getting asked a lot of questions at the trail walks by residents who were interested in, were excited to hear that there was a potential for it, and then we look like idiots because we don't know. We're the Trails and Greenways. committee
I
members,
think
and we
the
just don't
answer
know.
that you can give is that with, at this point, we ran into some legal implications that would not make it possible to move forward at this time. I think that's a really simple answer
Well,
that you can do, and I don't think you have to go any further with it.
I know that, but that sounds like party line stuff that the average resident glosses over and goes, they glaze over and like, really? Like,
Yeah, but it'd be even more political if you start pointing fingers at exactly what.
I'm not saying no, and then I'm not saying that. I'm saying, but the rumor mill is already going, and then I have no idea. I didn't even know, like, is it a Pico thing? Is it the private residence thing? Honestly, didn't know, but they're already circulating the rumors, and I'm just getting asked.
So, but
No, don't know.
I think that you can say there, and again, I don't, first of all, I think for us to be any more specific about it would be irresponsible. There are legal matters that have
Okay.
come up in the process that would keep us from moving forward at this time. And that's what we would say. I
Okay,
mean, because to be honest with you, it's bigger than just a residence. It's bigger than just Pico. There's more involved to it, and it is, at this point, there is no way we can do the trail through that section at this time. Period. The question that I want to propose back to the group is, do we want to spend any time looking at another alternative way to connect the two parks? That's what I would like to bring back and have a conversation on at this time, because it itself is not easy, just looking at the topography and the way.
yeah, that's what I was gonna think.
It's not. And so the question is this the energy that we want to put forth at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at that because my wife is the coach at the swim club and we live in St. Albans. So so I've actually looked at it, walked it. I was a part of the one cleanup through that corridor. We're actually going through picking up trash. I was thinking about that because of the history of the past that John had shared with me. And I don't know how you could do it otherwise. Where it would also be safe because you'd end up on oh my gosh, I'm having a complete blank here. The road that intersects with Mail and 252 crosses, oh my gosh, why? Bryn Mawr Ave. You'd have to go up around, you'd have to make two small connection trails through the other neighborhoods so that you could walk in safer neighborhoods where it's not really trails anymore, but you could safely walk from one to the other in that situation. You'd have to get away and connect everything that way. So that was the
You
confusion.
know, I think there's a lot to it to make it work, and but I think there's a benefit to bringing the committee back together one last time, and maybe not be the last time, but at least have them review it and give a recommendation one way or the other.
All right, 9.3, the chair meeting update. So Beth and I have been going to multiple meetings, led by Mr. Neese, and we'd be meeting with the other chairs of the other committees in the township to go over some stuff. Some of it was procedural, us learning how to do certain things within the township, who to communicate through. Steve Bradley is our liaison. So anything you ever have, funnel it through him. So we have one point of communication, because if there's too much cross communication, it gets difficult. You can obviously run it through me as well, but if it has to interface directly with the township, I'm going to send it through Steve. So just keep that in mind. The other things was the collaboration that was requested between the EAC. There's some future stuff, honestly, nothing other than the thing we already mentioned, but really it was very interesting to hear what all the other committees of the township were doing. The newly formed, what is it specifically called? The historical one? It's the exact name.
The
Historical commission.
it's a historic preservation.
Historic Preservation Act, because there's a historic society that is not the same. That has pre-existed for a while, correct? George is shaking yes. Okay, good. I knew that was the distinction. Thank you. I just couldn't remember the name. So the society and the commission, and hearing some of the stuff that they're trying to do. Shade Tree Commission, I think, is doing a inventory of all of the trees on the township property. Is something supposed to be happening this summer, I believe, sir.
Well,
So,
I think that they're starting the process. I don't think they're gonna be able to get them all done in 1 year.
okay,
There's way too many trees on township property. There's way too many pieces of property, but the idea is they're working through that process.
gotcha. Thank you for the clarification. So overall, it seems like everybody's really motivated to kind of work together and do a few things. There was some potential thing. Beth had actually recommended something that was really liked by some people and not liked by others, of a kind of a volunteer committee, or not a volunteer committee, I'm sorry, a volunteer group in which we would essentially have people that were passionate volunteering in the township that are already volunteering maybe in one area or another, and you could kind of have some sharing of that. There was one particular was, well, hold on, like, people are dedicating their time already one thing. Not everybody has got enough time as you think, and I don't know if I want to be shared in mine versus other. So I kind of understood both sides of it, but it sounds like there is some potential of future conversations to happen regarding that. To when we do have some of these events, more than just how fun the trail events are, if we could get a huge amount of people, obviously, is some of the other things that we're going to try and do. It is sometimes difficult to get the volunteers. So it was a good idea. I think definitely to work through it, but that was one of the things I wanted to mention, update everybody. It was a very positive experience for me personally to learn about some of the functions of the township, some of the other things going on, and give a bigger picture and understand how much is going on and how much the township is trying to organize for. So thank you for that. Appreciate it, really. Any questions on it? So currently, they've just been going to John and myself and Beth because of, one, obviously, everybody knows John. And everybody knows John is willing for anything he's passionate about getting involved and helping out. But that's how it's been going on currently. I don't know if there's really a different way to do it. I think if you have the connection and we want to do something, if it's an actionable item, it should come before the committee, just like I brought up here today. We just found out about that one.
Terry,
But yeah,
what is your opinion as to people that are in your group? Might they be willing to volunteer for certain? It's already established.
Allowed to help and the booth, I mean, people here at every event. If you have active volunteers that are jumping, they want to.
well, I think we could definitely bring it up at one of our trail walks, is that if you want to get involved. And then I think we have one point of contact from each committee. So if they want to get involved, I'll gladly give any resident my number so that they can reach out. And then if I can put them in contact with Cindy or somebody
Yeah,
else.
I think
Sheila,
that
or
the
whatever.
whole idea of having these care meetings or committee update, committee meetings is for, we're trying to do it more often so that you can work together during those times, talk about what it is that you're trying to do. I realize that some of that'll happen outside of that as well. But the idea is for everybody to know what's going on, make sure we're all working in the same direction. Because we've got a lot of different volunteer groups doing. The answer in regards to can volunteers help do things, absolutely. I think that it's just a matter of making sure that, the volunteers that you're bringing in are speaking for this group. I would always want to make sure that if you have a volunteer at an event, that they understand exactly what it is that you're trying to do. And if they're not, then you may just want to make sure that you've given a kind of what the communication points are that you're willing to have put out, because you don't want somebody heading off in a direction that's not the direction that you're headed. Because remember, this group that's here are the ones that make the decision and make a recommendation back to the board or whatever. That's the authority spot, and even any one individual here can't go off in a direction without this group making a decision. That's the direction that you want to go. So that's my concern. But I'm always happy. I mean, look, for those of you that were here last year when we did the volunteer event, it takes all the volunteers to make this work. So I'm always happy to see volunteers participating and doing things. I mean, that's important. That's what makes the town better. And so I wouldn't want to discourage volunteers at all. Just make sure that we help to guide where they're gonna be and what they're gonna be doing, that's all.
Okay, so Beth did send me an update, so moving on to 9.4 update on recommendations from the Lenape Nation. She finally did get a chance to speak with, I think it was a clan mother from the Lenape Nation of Pennsylvania. They talked for a little while, it sounds like, about a bunch of different things. The next steps forward that she has listed out is that apparently she's going to send over to Beth some reading materials that actually has all of this already documented, so it makes it easier. She's doesn't look like she's got anything specific right now. She's waiting on that reading material. I mean, I'm glad they finally talked, but was there a timeline on that, sir, Mr. Sharretts, of trying to do the plantings? I can't remember.
I don't think there was a particular one. I know we were trying to avoid with other projects going on, such as like a tree planting event, you know,
That's right.
it would either be coordinated with a tree planting event or make sure that there was space in between them. And again, like we didn't want, when I talked to the tree commission about the Goshen Trail, for example, and we said that, you know, Beth was working on this. I know they were speaking with her because they didn't want to plant trees where maybe Beth had envisioned some plantings going and vice versa.
So the following step after that is apparently the clan mother is coming down from Allentown on May 19th to meet with Beth and actually walk the trail so that they can try to lay something out. So in theory, at that time, Beth would have already gotten the reading materials. They could go over it. They could say, oh, what about this? What about that? And then come back to this group with the proposal at that point of what they actually want to do. So that's the update that we've got from Beth on kind of what's going on with that item. Are there any questions from the group on 9.4? Okay. Open it up then, so public comment period. Okay. Thank you. I guess this is actually out of order here, so 11 should be actually items for the next agenda, right? One of the things that we were kind of discussing was to try, you know, I know Aaron, you and Mr. Neese, you and Aaron had conversations. And what we were trying to do, Aaron and I were talking, and one of the ideas that we had was maybe it would be a good idea in the future meetings to just kind of always have, I guess, on the old businesses, to actually bring up our Trails and Greenways plan, documented stuff the township had actually approved on, to try to refocus the group and say, okay, like these are some of the things that were actually brought up. And just even if it's one page each meeting, that we're kind of refreshing everybody's memory so we're not straying too far from some of the things we're looking at. And it might help us remind ourselves of like, well, yeah, this trail was actually something that maybe we could do this year or something like that, because it is hard. I've read the entire thing cover to cover like 3 times, and I know I've forgotten probably more than I remember in it, because it is a big document. It's hard to follow sometimes, and it's hard to tab back and forth. If I have my physical copy, it's better because I've tabbed everything, but digitally it's like hard to remember. So I wanted to know what everybody's thoughts were on that. We're going to try, and because of the essence of time, trying to keep it tight. Like I was saying, even if it's just one page each meeting, and we just pick a different one, and we just kind of progress through, it might be a good idea of bringing back up. What are everybody's thoughts on that? Joe, yeah. Well, I just think that it might be a good idea to remind everybody of some of the important things that are in there, because it does get hard sometimes.
I would let you know that April 11th, I'm having 2 meetings, one at 3 and one at 6. And if anybody from here wants to come, I would encourage you to do so. I did mention it to Erin when I met with her for the public along. It's open to anybody in the township to come, but we're specifically meeting hopefully with some residents along Ellis Avenue for where we're putting in the sidewalk. Remember, almost a year ago now, probably, you all gave direction that the $650,000 that we got from that grant, that we would do that connection. So we're ready to do that. We're getting ready to move forward. We just want to make sure that if there's anything in the design that we need to make change, we want to do it now before we get too late in the process. And so we're getting ready to do that before we go out to bid. So we're doing that. I think it's on the 11th. And it's
What time?
3 o'clock and 6 o'clock. It's the same meeting both times, but I wanted to give chance for the public to come out and weigh in on it at those times. I also, Steve and I have been talking, we're looking at resubmitting for some grants related. I'm looking really at either a trail / sidewalk along Campus Boulevard. We had put it in before, or we're going back at it one more time. Again, that was one we thought was a good project. We still think it's a good project. Particularly, my understanding is that there's a chance that the bus will stop actually stopping on Campus Boulevard at some point. That's part of the bus routes evaluation. If that were to happen, sidewalk there becomes even more important to get people from there out to the bus stop on Westchester Pike. So I think it's a good thing to add in and do that. If you don't know already, Boron actually put in a trail around their property. And so I would try to look at just kind of connecting to that and going further. And that's actually a nice little trail that it's not very long, but it's just right around their property. And it's a wood chip trail right there. It comes across the front, goes down both sides and across the back. And I've driven by it several times this week, and every day there's somebody out walking it, particularly during the lunchtime hours. So that's why it was put in. They wanted to make sure their people had a chance to get outside and walk. And that's one of the things they did. So this would increase the chance of having somebody actually connect there. And if we had a sidewalk going down there, so or a trail, we've looked at it both ways. And so we want to put that back in. So I just wanted you to be aware we were doing that.
Is this the one for the person in the township that doesn't know every square foot of it? Is this the one that goes at the top down around Drexel Lodge Park wooded area? Is that curve?
So if you literally come out here
Mhm.
and go to the right and go to the stoplight.
Yep.
That's Campus Boulevard.
Oh,
And
right.
it kind of weaves through the campus park there, the office park, and comes out and daylights again at Route 3
Yep.
on Westchester Pike. We have talked at some point trying to do a connection if we get a trail along there, would be doing a connection into Florida Park, and then also doing a connection into our park,
Drexel Lodge.
Drexel Lodge.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I remember just the one time when I was up on that hill, like where it kind of starts to go curve downhill, and right there is, I think, the Drexel Park. Okay.
Yeah, so
It's
one
like
of
a-
the
it's like a bowl
challenges.
shape there almost.
One of the challenges there, part of the property is ours and part of the property actually belongs to the person that owns the property at the corner. The piece that would be most easily to come in would be the piece that's on the other person's property, so we would have to work through that, but that's where we're.
Okay.
It's
Thank you.
it's a great opportunity, again, I think, for connection.
Thank you for letting us know about the April 11th meeting too. Okay. Anyone else want to recommend something for the next meeting? No? Okay, thank you very much. Motion to adjourn? Move, John Custer, seconded, Joe Pasuka. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Adjourn.